Hello, my name is T-Rex, and welcome to my podcast show called Something Positive. Each week, I'm very lucky I get to speak to some amazing people who at times have gone through some very challenging life situations, but not everyone. The one thing in common with everyone I do speak with is they want to be able to share some of the positive angles and silver linings that they've learned throughout life. So tune in and remember, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone. Hello, Cassandra. Good morning. Welcome to my podcast called Something Positive. How are you this morning?
I'm really good. Thank you. How are you?
You're really good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm definitely not a morning person, so I know we're not recording super early, but it takes me a while to get started. I'm like 12 noon o'clock. That's when my brain starts off. So what about you? Are you are you a morning person or?
I am a morning person. I appreciate you being here in the
No,
middle of the day for me.
Yeah, and you have kids as well, right? So
I do,
that
yeah.
kind of gets
I
you
do.
going. Yeah,
It does,
exactly.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you. I promise I will get into the flow of things in a moment as we get on to this the topic and start questioning. So my brain will be sharp. Our topic today is going to revolve around education. And more so, I would say, like, the topic would be like educating Generation Alpha. It doesn't dispute that we're not going to talk about all younger generations because you and I are Gen X. So, whereas it's like an interesting topic to go into. I also, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that, I know that you're a teacher, definitely. But
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. You stopped teaching at some point, right? In
that's right.
2020.
Yeah,
And then you came back into secondary school, if that's
yeah,
correct, right?
that's right.
Um, can you tell us just a little bit more in terms of before we go more into you as well? Just curious to understand that background. Like, why did you, go into teaching? Why did you stop teaching, and why are you back, basically?
Okay, so why did I go into teaching? God, it was such a long time ago. I was always, when I was doing my degree, when I was doing my degree, I was always encouraged to do teaching. I was doing a languages degree, so the opportunities to practice my languages was always going to a country and working in a school. So I did French and Russian. So I went to Russia, I went to Moscow, and I worked in the Institute of Food Technology in Moscow and teaching English. And I was working in France, working in primary schools, teaching English. And so when you're studying languages, you spend your years abroad and you teach English essentially. Um, when I finished my degree, I felt that I didn't want to be a teacher because even though I felt I was good at it, I felt as if I didn't want to be in a secondary school with a bunch of people who didn't want to be there. And I remember trying to get into other careers, even though I spent my early 20s traveling. I lived in Japan, teaching English. I lived in France, teaching English. I did all of this English teaching, but I didn't feel like it was the career that I wanted. I was actually trying to get in the Foreign Office. I was trying to, because I speak languages and I felt that that's what I wanted to do. So when I came into, I kept on getting rejected from the Foreign Office actually. Um, Silly fool. Um, and and it was when I got my last rejection letter. I went for a lower entry application and I got rejected from that. And I just thought, this is like, I'm trying to push at this door here, and this door is closed to me. And it was the day before I was about to start my PGCE, the PGC being the teaching qualification in the UK. So
Hmm.
I kind of, like, with my knuckles dragging on the floor, started my PGCE in London, and from day one of my PGC, I just knew that I was actually, it's, like a big truth that you just have to accept about yourself. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like a duck in water. This is what I have, the skill set for this. I have the patience for this. I have the interest to do this. And so I just flourished in that. I had a background of teaching. I knew what learner autonomy was. I knew various theories of learning already, having taught English as a foreign language. And that's what led me to go into teaching. And I just flew in the first part of my career. I was a fast track teacher, which this was in the mid noughties, so this was like the back end of the Labour government. I was a fast track teacher, which meant that I was getting opportunities to advance my career quicker by doing more whole school projects. So I did that, and I became a head of languages quite quickly. I became a deputy head of languages in my third year of teaching, and then I did that for a year, and then I became a head of languages when the post holder retired. So I went up pretty quickly, and then I stayed there. I stayed as a head of department for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I was trying to lead. I was trying to go up. I basically had children in that 10 years, and so that kind of, although it was still challenging and it was still interesting, and I changed the culture. I changed the culture of my department, which was really hard but really interesting. I didn't advance. There's some kind of gender equality questions which I think are invited in that thing as well, of having kids and not advancing. Um, Answers on a postcard, thank you. But when I came back in proper, having had my children, I was trying to go up. My results were excellent. My department results were amazing. The strategy that we had implemented was really working. We were just on a high. I was doing lots of whole school projects and having a wider impact on the whole school. And so I wanted to go
Mm-hmm.
up to assistant headship. I felt that, to me, honestly, was the only way of career advancement in education. It's like, and that just seemed to be the only thing. So you do maybe a curriculum pathway going up, and that's the academic pathway, or you do a pastoral pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to be a lead of teaching and learning. I find teaching, like evidencing learning, I find really interesting. So I was applying to all kinds of assistant headship positions in my local area.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I understand that it's actually the most competitive place to apply for a teacher, because you have a lot of people applying for not very many roles. And when I was getting an interview, like if I got an interview, I'd always be, I actually really enjoy the interview process, weirdly. I just really enjoy it. I like kind of being on the spot and having to kind of react to stuff, or kind of innovate on,
Mm-hmm.
live.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd get down to the final two. I'd often get down to the final two, which was really, really encouraging to me. But it was taking a long time, and the crunch came for me was when my school, who knew my background and who knew what I was capable of and who I was, they were advertising for an assistant head, and I applied for it, and they didn't interview me, which I understand why. These are good reasons not to interview an internal candidate. But the thing that made me just want to take a step back was not that I didn't like teaching, not that I felt disillusioned by the system. It's just that I know, actually, in hindsight, that I needed growth, and I wasn't getting the growth that I needed. I needed change. I needed development. And so I stepped out of teaching and I started running a family business. And I did an MBA while I was running that family business. And now I understand. I understand what talent management is now. I understand. And basically, what I see, having studied business and run a business and been an active member of my local business community, I see that the education sector is essentially run by people who have been great teachers. They've been brilliant teachers, which is why they've advanced in the way that they have. But I think they really haven't been given the training that you need, which is a different skill set, to lead an organization, to develop people, to really make inquiry into your blind spots, to really interrogate your student experience. I was doing my MBA, and I just thought, I just had so many, we need this practice in education. We need this thing that they do here of analyzing your systems and processes, or developing your talent, or all of these things that I was learning, what your strategy is. Oh my gosh, a business strategy is incredibly streamlined. An education strategy is usually about 5 pages of A4, which is not a strategy. Like, I just really feel that the education sector is designed in a way by people who think that that's what you need to do. That's what strategy is, for example. This is our reputation, and if we just stick to the line, hold the line, then our reputation will improve, without really using the techniques of business to do that far more effectively, and in a way that's going to have far more impact. So I've come back into education because, you know what, like, education is what drives me. Like, it's not actually education that drives me, it's reducing inequality that drives me. That's what really drives me. And that's why the way that I want to reduce inequality in our wider society is by empowering those people who are the most disenfranchised, and by giving them a sense of agency. And I do that through education. So the education is a vehicle actually for me to reduce inequality in our wider society. And so that's what I'm doing now. So that's
That's
my
brilliant. I
back.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I can clearly see you're very passionate about this, and I follow you as well on TikTok, where you kind of put out a lot of amazing content about education. There are different topics around it, and I really really take my hat off, as the saying, right, to you, because I think it's amazing when you see passionate people who want to kind of voice out things that need to be talked about, right? And I think education is a huge topic, in the sense, like like we can go and look at different countries and how the education system works and doesn't work, and all that. And this is like a completely different topic of its own. Like you can kind of find subtopics around this.
Yeah.
Like in terms of, we're going to go into this topic a bit more in terms of what today's topic is, which is like educating younger generations, and especially Gen Alpha, and we'll talk more about why that's important, I think, to talk about today. But just for anyone who's listening in who might not be familiar, because I'm half American. When I came to this country, like, I didn't understand what the school system is. Like, secondary school, what is this? I don't understand. Like, what college, what I mean, the college system is different and things like that. So just for any viewers, if you can give us a quick understanding, what does the school system look like, in a sense? Like, what does secondary school, for instance, mean? That would be really helpful, I think.
Okay, yeah, sure. That's a good shout. So basically, when you turn 4, so our school system starts in September and finishes in August. If you turn 5 within September, between September and August, you're going to start school, and you're going to start in reception. And you go from reception. It goes reception, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. That is primary school. And then you go from primary school, year 6, where you turn 11 in that year. You then go to secondary school, where you do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And at year 11, when you turn 16 in that year, that's when you do GCSEs in the UK. Everybody has to do GCSEs. Everybody should do GCSEs unless you are homeschooled and you have other things going on. And then you have what's called post 16, which is post 16 years old, and you have year 12 and year 13, when you will turn 18 in that year. And there are all kinds of qualifications you can do, such as A levels, such as T levels, such as apprenticeships, such as C levels. There's all these different variety of NVQs, diplomas. There's a whole gamut of them. The GCSE in year 11 is a national one, and then when you go post 16, there's a whole range of them. I'll just add as well that there are sub contexts as well, and we call them key stages. So you have key stage, I can't remember in primary school now. I think it goes early first years is from reception, year 1, year 2. That's your early first years. Then you have key stage 1, which is year 3 and 4, and then you have key stage 2, which is 5 and 6, and then you have key stage 3, which is 7 and 8, year 7 and 8. And some schools choose to do key stage 4, which is your GCSE year. That's when you study your GCSE subjects and the GCSE content. Some schools like to start that in year 9 when the kids are 13 or 14, or they'll do it in year 10 when they're 14 or 15. So it's usually a two-year course of GCSEs, but that's key stage 4. And then key stage 5 is post 16.
Well, that's interesting. Well, okay, thank you for that, because I didn't even realize you have those kind of sub things and things like that. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, like for me, that it sounds like a very complicated system. I'm assuming like everyone who's in it maybe not feels that way, but for me, that sounds more complicated to what I'm used to. Like for me, it's like you go from 1 to 7, then you go to high school back in the Scandinavia at least, and then you kind of at some point when you're, I don't know, you're 18, then you go into like more like university, college, things like that you would call. So we don't have all those things. Like it's very simplified compared to what over here in the UK is, which is very interesting though. Very, very fascinating. And but on the topic, we're not going to talk about GCSEs or anything like that today. We're talking about educating the younger generations. And I think this is a topic, at least, it's close to my heart, because I also coach and train like people who are younger than me. And I'm 45, so or turning 45 in next month. And sometimes I found it sometimes a bit challenging, right? I'm Gen X, right? So I'm the generation where I guess we can call ourselves the trauma generation, in a sense that we've had to go through we've had to go through some ups and downs, right? We've had parents, at least my mom and my dad, lived through a generation. Their parents were in the war, in the Second World War. They came up after that, where, at least in our household and in a Finnish tradition, um, we were taught to kind of be a bit more resilient in that sense, right? Like, just get on with it. Don't complain. Don't do this. You have to work really hard to get to where you want to get to and things like that. So the school model and the education model was reflected of that, right? You had to go to school. You couldn't be late. You couldn't talk back to your teachers, all this kind of stuff. Now, the younger generations, especially, I'm not talking about millennials or anything like that, but especially like I'm seeing like Gen Z, I think it's called, and then Gen Alpha. Like you're seeing a different generation who are not afraid to talk back, right? Or kind of like really demanding. They know who they are, and that's a positive thing, right? I'm not saying that, but I see that sometimes that can be a challenging thing in life when you're teaching people. And you and I know talked about this before. We'll go into this like more in depth, but I wanted to get a sense from you as a teacher as well, in your own words. What does it mean, Gen Alpha? When you think about, how would you describe, you as a Gen X person versus a Gen Alpha individual?
Okay, so technically speaking, Gen Alpha, I think, starts from around 2011, 2012. Although there's always, with these different generations, there's always a bit of
Yeah.
overflow on the cusp. And what I'm seeing is that these are people who, they have a sense of their own, they have a sense of their own agency in a way that I haven't seen with previous, in my early teaching career, teaching the younger generation, the younger part of the school. What I'm seeing is, if I think about even the older kids, the kind of the Gen Z, who are like old, I would say maybe 14, 15-year-old, there is an awareness. I know that there's overlap in the people I teach in terms of their generations, but what my experience of them is first of all, they're very aware of like mental health issues, especially the older generation, especially the older kids. They know, they can articulate in a way that I don't. They're a lot more self-aware. They can articulate when they're feeling anxious or when they're feeling overwhelmed. They're not able to regulate themselves, but they might be able to. But we are using, I really see this actually as teachers, we are using the language of emotional regulation in a way that I had never done previously. With the Gen Alpha proper, so the younger kids, I'm saying year 7 and below, so 11 and below. What I definitely see is you need to work a lot harder to get the buy-in. It's not enough to the sense of authority and the kind of respect that the role of a teacher demanded has seriously been eroded in a way. It's just not good enough as a teacher to come into a room and for the children to just be silent. That just doesn't happen. It used to, and you could argue that this is about the culture of the school. By promoting that, it could be about that. But actually, what I'm seeing from them is they want to know why they need to learn something. They're a lot more. This is what I mean when I say they have a lot more agency. They want to know what the point of it is. They want to have fun. And you might argue that they are losing the skills to sit down and study quietly. But actually, these children have been brought up differently, so differently from the way that we were brought up. I also think, I mean, I dare say there's research that's going to be published on this at some point, but the way that they are parented, I think, by people who didn't experience the benefits of the education system working for them. So in other words, they're millennials, they're Gen Xers. In some cases, they are that older generation, the people parenting Gen Alpha just now. They maybe were told to work hard at school and then you would get a good job. They were told that there were benefits to having a decent education, so they did that. They were the good boys and girls who were sitting down doing the work, getting the qualifications, but they didn't see the benefits of it in the wider society. They didn't get the secure job. They didn't get the access to cheaper housing or whatever, or being able to buy their own house. And we've got the cost of living crisis, the whole kind of social context of it. So they maybe are a bit out of love with what education can do, and they are they've seen that you've got to just do it for yourself. So that idea, I wonder how much of that plays into it as well, the way that these people are being parented.
Mm.
These young people basically they're great, honestly. I think that I think that they're people. Basic that whole thing, that whole traditional thing of that hierarchy of authority. I was never one of those teachers who was like, respect my authority. I was never one of them. I was very much we are people working together. I was very much on an equal platform. There are definitely some teachers who were, I'm the teacher, you're the student, I'm the parent, you're the child, I have a position here, you have a position here. And I think that the student, the child is now like, actually, do you know what? We are equal. That's what they're demanding. And if there is struggle in that, it's a generational struggle to be that for them. That's what they're demanding. And these guys are struggling to come down in some ways. Some people are loving it. They're like, yeah, finally, my child is empowered. I can actually see that they're going to do great things because they're not accepting. I was quiet and did as I was told. This is what the parents are saying. But my child is not doing that. And although it's hard work, it is hard because they're going to kick back. I respect them for it because it gives me confidence that in life they're going to be able to kick back and not enter those more kind of submissive roles or submissive relationships or anything where they don't have agency. So that's what I experience of teaching the younger generation.
Yeah, and I think that's like your statement. And like I was, you talk to a lot of people, or at least I see content where people are more complaining about the younger generations, and that's I get it. Like I understand, like because I'm Gen X, you're Gen X, like it can be very different to what you're used to, like very old school upbringing in a sense, a very old school education system I've gone through personally, where you just don't talk back, like you in a sense you don't know who you are because you're kind of being not suppressed, but in a way like you it takes you a long time to find the confidence to talk back, or not necessarily talk back, maybe that's the wrong way of stating it, but like having a voice, right? And I think that's where the younger generations are brilliant at, that they are empowered, like you said, they're empowered to be themselves. Now in terms of this educational things, because I want to talk a little bit about the challenge before we go into the positives, because something positive podcast is about looking at the positives of things. But I think it's important that we acknowledge some of the challenges that might come with that as well, because it's great that you're seeing like you're that positive angle, but I wonder if there's like things that you have also seen as a challenge. For instance, if you think about younger generations and the older generations, like you said, like it might take time for them to be balanced out, but that can cause sometimes a ripple effect, because the older generations are like, we're more like, you need to work hard to get where you want to get to. You need to study. You can't just go on chat GPT and look up the answers, which it's all these kind of things where we want to teach our children a little bit, resiliency, right? Like nothing just happens on a whim of a snap of a finger, which I think is important, right? Now, but in your view, as a teacher, where does some of this come in? Like, where do you see challenges with this kind of a teacher mindset who is a bit older, looking at these old school ways, and then you've got the younger generation who have these empowerment? Like, what challenges are you seeing in that educational system for you, yourself, your colleagues, and what needs to change?
So, okay. So the whole point of why we educate people is so that they can join the workforce. And what I think, where the resistance from the older generation comes in, is the older generation are worried that these younger generation are not going to be able to survive in the workplace. I genuinely think it comes from a place of worry and a little bit of fear that these people can't cope in a school setting. How are they going to get in the real world when they're not going to be able to earn money because they're not able to arrive on time and they don't have the correct equipment or whatever it is? So I think that that comes from a place because they care about the young person, first of all. So these people moaning about it, honestly, I feel like it comes from a place because they care about them. They're just also kind of fed up. Now, the thing is, right, is that what I see is, and there is in the workplace, there are expectations of you in the workplace, right? You do have to turn up correctly. You do have to show up. You do have to commit yourself to stuff. But I also think that the education sector's idea of what work is is the idea of work is changing. This whole hybrid career, this whole working from home, this whole,
Mhm.
young people can create their own work in a way that the older generation, it was never accessible to them. So it's no wonder, because they don't necessarily understand what the workplace is nowadays. I mean, not when they were younger. I mean, obviously I, I I think that the way that these people interact with business is through like the service sector or holidays, or they interact with it as a customer rather than as a a B2B business, or as somebody who is running a startup, or something like that. I think so. I don't think they genuinely understand the options available to young people. That's not to say that the young people are going to be, there is going to be a bit of a turbulence, shall we say. And we see that now with some of these people describing what Gen X is like in the workplace, where because they are so much more self-aware, and because our kind of communities, people would go to work and expect work to be your, you would get a sense of community from other parts of your life, such as family, such as church, such as volunteering, such all of these other broader social time. You go to work, that's not your community. Now the Gen Zers are going to work believing that, well, not believing, but acting like the work is the community. And so they bring their whole selves to work in a way that is can be inappropriate. So they're talking to their managers about, personal problems and stuff that they don't really care
Mhm.
about. They care about it.
Yeah.
They just don't need that. They're kind of leaning psychologically on their workplace in a way that
Yeah.
we haven't done previously. And so what does this mean for Gen Alpha? I just feel that it's not just like a moment of transition in an education context. It's also a moment of transition in the workplace,
Mhm.
especially post COVID. Like the idea
Mhm.
of work has changed 100% since COVID, and it's opened up a whole new gamut of opportunities that our Gen Alphas can take advantage of, but that the adults are not necessarily aware of.
Makes sense. Yeah. The thing I was just thinking about when you mentioned about like organizations need to kind of adapt to that. I think there's still some way to go. Like again, I work for, organizations as well, or in the past and currently, where you see that there is a sense of people understanding that the younger generations are who they are. But some of the things that they facilitate in the organization, like, are like, give you an example, like, let's say someone wants to be promoted, right? I come from the background of, like, you know what? I'm not going to ask when I'm going to get promoted, right? I had to work, my butt off, right? And then someone tapped me on the shoulder, was like, "Hey, would you like to do this and this?" Oh yes, absolutely. Grateful. And nowadays, not I'm generalizing, but workplaces are also seeing that people come in with a certain expectation, like, "Hey, I've been here for 3 months. Am I not supposed to be promoted?" Right? And it's like, wait a minute, you need to, do certain things first, right? So my question here is, like, do you think that's a fair statement, in the sense, like, is that so? And how does the education side of things, how should that facilitate that? Because I think there needs to be a little bit of, like, if we want to get to workplaces and people and generations coming together, we need to find a balance, right?
Yeah.
Like to, like, the generations understand each other. How do we do that? How does the education system come into this all? How are we going
Okay.
to teach people these things?
So let me just get my crystal ball off the shelf.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, I think, okay, so there's two things there. I think the way that what you're describing, I would agree with. What you're describing is, and this is what I've heard from my local business community, is that they are saying that our young people entering the workplace are knowledge rich but skills poor. This is what they're saying. And I think that this is as a direct result from the qualifications that we make young people do, and the not post 16, but this at 16. It's all about, we have in the UK, right? We have, they're called content-rich curriculums. Basically, you have to cover an enormous amount of content in quite a reduced amount of time. So the young people, the students, need to basically retain enormous amounts of information. The reason for this is because it's good for your brain. It's good. Your brain. It's like doing squats. People do squats in the gym not because they're going to squat everywhere or lunge everywhere. It's because it obviously I'm just going to squat. It's because it makes you a strong body, and it's the same. It's the same thing with the content, the amount of content you get a stronger. You're able to process things more quickly, and you're able to have a better memory and stuff. So it's grounded in good science, but the result of it is that the way that it is being delivered, because of the pressure on schools to essentially get good results, schools that they basically are under the cosh of Ofsted and results analysis. The only KPI in a school environment is your results, and so much focus and so many resources get put into results, GCSE results in particular, that teachers basically they basically go through a process of, this is the assessment. They guide the learning in a way
Mm,
that doesn't allow for creative thinking, that doesn't allow for those young people to develop those human skills, the creative thinking skills, that ingenuity, that resilience, and that grit. I mean, I'm not saying that young people don't have resilience and grit. You do. If you do GCSE, then you have got to show it's because of the stress that the school puts the young people under. You are on your shoulders. You are feeling that. You are feeling the weight of the pressure of exams, right? So they have grit. They're able to deal with a lot of stress, but the actual way that it is administered is very much leading by the hand. It doesn't allow them. The the qualification itself doesn't allow for elastic thinking. It's just, this is the knowledge that you need to absorb it. This is how you absorb it. This is what I need to see. Do that, and then you will get your results. It. So I feel like the practice of that at this formative stage, then when they enter the workplace, they're like, okay, you're telling me to do the thing. I'm doing the thing. Where's my reward? Because that's what they've had in education, because that has been the main motivator in
mm,
education.
mm, yeah.
So I guess, I guess it seems quite understandable why we're in this situation at the moment with our Gen Zers in the workplace.
Mm. Yeah, because I was just thinking back, like, I'm not sure if you had the same experiences in school, but back in where I was growing up in the States and also in Scandinavia and Finland, is that, we had, again, a more of a rigid where it was, it's not that we weren't able to talk to like the teachers. Like my parents, probably had a very, very strict, like they got probably like smacked in the fingers if they did something wrong, like might be exaggerating, but we all know some of the
I
stories,
think
right?
it's true.
Like my school and when I was growing up, like I could talk to my teachers and I felt a sense of like being safe and being heard to a degree. However, there is still that side of things that I do appreciate now as a 45-year-old, a Gen X who has had to go certain things, where like you said, absolutely, if you do GCSEs, like that causes resilience. But then there's the side of things where we talk about, let's say, for instance, if your parents aren't teaching you some of the things like you need to do, like, I was growing up, I had to do chores, I had to do things to get something, and I didn't always like it, I had to go and do other things as well. But now there's a sense of, parenting is like people being rewarded for just being showing up, there's that sense of like everyone's a winner. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of like what I'm kind of getting at here, is like a sense of everyone's a winner, everyone deserves something. And then you can argue that there are people who are looking at this and looking at the younger generations, looking at the education system and saying, well, wait a minute, shouldn't we be teaching them some of this a little bit more, like not just giving them the sense that everything should be just given? Do you know what I mean? We already have technology. Everything is just, again, it's just the whim of the fingers. So my question here is like, is it the responsibility of education systems to teach them this other type of resilience and like being not scolded, but kind of not always getting what you want, and having that experience that we had as growing up? Do you
So
think
the
that's where the school system should be? Like we should be a bit more rigid again,
so the
and we should teach
consequences.
the generation. Yeah,
So the young people kind of learning from the consequences of their decisions, basically.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we have. This is such a difficult question, because ultimately, education. education has got like a lot to do. Like the responsibilities of education for our young people, it's not just the educator's job to raise the children, it's the parent. It's like in community, we do this, right? So we do need to teach our young people how to be resilient, how to do the stuff, do the kind of boring work because it needs to be done, because it needs to be done. The chores are important. These are life skills. I think parents are responsible for life skills, right? Many parents don't have those life skills themselves. So they need to, again, it's just education can't be, we don't have the resources, to be quite honest. We don't have the resources to be able to deal with everything. Although there were some beautiful stories during lockdown of, teachers delivering food packages to homes, or, as a school, I see, very poor, the children who come from families who are deep in poverty, who are getting food at schools, who are getting things washed, who are honestly, like, if they have a situation of neglect, they are getting taken care of. There is a pastoral system that is in place to be able to help catch these people. But it's not just education. It has to be parents. It has to be social services. In some cases, it has to be the police as well. Like there needs to be, we need to do this in community ultimately. It's not binary. We have to do it from our business people as well, our business community too, because ultimately, if we're going to be in this paradigm of educating people so they can get jobs, the business community need to be within this conversation as well, of who is responsible for what. It can't just be down to educators, because it's just a job at the end of the day. And it's not fair to keep on taking the goodwill of the teacher to be responsible for teaching this rich content rich curriculum, and also, quote unquote, parenting the child as well. It really is. It's got to be a collaboration to raise. It takes a village, right? So it's got to be a collaboration.
I'm curious, actually. I wanted to ask one question which I forgot to ask earlier. What are the younger generations? What is Generation Alpha like? As I'm not talking about individual, but what are some of the characteristics you're seeing in the classroom? Like, what are they like? And I'm curious to hear like some of the good positives, not the negatives.
Honestly, so Gen Alpha are. I mean, kids are brilliant. Kids are brilliant. They are. One thing that I notice is that, and I don't know if it's because, so this lot, they're not a stranger to a device. So one way to really be able to show them validation in a way that I haven't ever really seen before is by like making a reference to some online game, or doing something. You know how we have like these things that go viral? Like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. There is a thing called a sue, which I'm not going to do. I'm resisting the urge to do it right now. But there's basically, they are funny. They're kids, they are curious, they're into stuff, but you can relate to them in a way that I don't think I was able to relate to them before. And I don't know if it's because I'm parenting Gen Alphas too, and I have maybe an access in, and maybe older parents who were teaching, the kids that were same age as their kids, they had access to a kind of a cultural capital that I've never had. I've got access to a cultural capital that I didn't have before. But I am definitely seeing that there are ways. It's a bit of a two-edged sword, this device thing, because on some respects, like these like trends and the things that go viral, it's like you can have like a secret language with them. Like if you say something like, they're gonna know, they're not gonna know, they kind of like, oh my god, you know that, it's it's a bit more crossover.
Yeah.
I think that that's quite fun to play with in the classroom.
Mm.
They just, they got spirit. They got spirit in a way that, I mean, I think they always had spirit, but they're just less afraid to show it. I have to say though as well, like as a teacher, I am also quite conscious of those people who are quieter. Like I will also like purposefully go and bring them in as well, because I feel that we've touched on this before, but I do feel that I'm able to speak to them about what they need. I think maybe this is why I can build my relationships in my classroom so quickly, is because we're in this culture of, you have to be this shape to fit in. You have to comply. You have to do this thing in order to be accepted.
Yeah.
I genuinely try and go in and kind of say, what do you need right now? Do you need me to leave you alone right now? And I won't follow the behavior policy if I can see that a person's having a difficult moment. Or, you know what, like if a child, I work in quite a difficult school in terms of the behavior is quite challenging, and so I'll have one child who will literally swear at another child because they've been triggered or whatever. And so I will depending on the situation, but I will ask that child to go outside and just breathe while I speak to the other person who just got sworn at about what they did to contribute to that. Because they don't just come in and swear at each other. And I always talk about the safe space that we need. We all belong here. This is a safe space for us. And I think I've never done that before. I feel that they need that. They're able to. There is a level of, not emotionally. It is emotional intelligence, but there is the the need. I feel like there is a need to articulate an emotional intelligence and a need to kind of actively validate people's contributions and then their emotional needs in a way that I haven't done before. And I don't know if that's just a maturing of my practice or if I'm just responding to what I see. I wonder, in terms of COVID, these are people who went through COVID isolated and didn't have those chances to play with each other and fall out of trees and whatever, not in the same way that the older generations did when they were that age. So I think that they need a bit of help. This is maybe something they need a bit more help getting along. That's actually something that I do with my year sevens. My year sevens that's my first. They are 11 or 12 years old. They are Gen Alpha. I am actually having to manage their friendships in a way that I haven't managed their friendships before. And I think that's something that I haven't done before. So that's another feature. We talk a lot more about safe spaces and a sense of belonging, and they love it, man. They love it.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
one kid who, oh, I just get such lovely feedback. They're like, we have this thing. It's only because I watched this television program called The Bear. I don't know if you've seen The Bear, where they
No,
did
no,
this,
no.
which was sorry. They would like rub their heart. So it's sign language. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
British or
yeah,
American. I imagine it's American sign language. That means sorry. And
yeah.
so we will do that to each other in the classroom. If we say something that's a
Oh,
little bit spiky, and so we go,
yeah.
oh,
Oh,
because
it's
you're actually rubbing
lovely.
your heart. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, I am that teacher. I'm that teacher who goes
yeah,
in and I'll hold space for them, basically. I will hold
yeah.
space for all of them, and there will be no judgment or shame around it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just to touch on that point as well, like, it's never going to be perfect no matter what you do as a human being or any school. Like, we can't facilitate everything. And, we can talk, that's a completely different topic as well. We could go into the nuances of like younger generations losing that little bit of that, how to build relationships, how to talk to one another, not just being on your device, all that. That's a different topic. And that's, it has positives and negatives. But my last few questions for you are: what else can Generation Alpha teach us? Let's go into the positives now. Of what can they teach the older generations? Like few things that you think were really important for us older generations to know.
Okay, we need to learn from them. And I mean, we have to practice learning. This is the irony, that we're in education to teach people, but we need to actually be humble and take the learning ourselves. If we were in a business environment, we would be adapting to the needs of our consumer. And I know that like people get really agitated when you talk about, learners being consumers, because they're not. It's a different thing. But I know that what happens in business is that you ask for customer feedback. You actively interrogate the customer experience in order to improve the thing that you're doing. Yeah. That's what we need to do in education. And actually, Gen Alpha just need to be themselves and be proud of who they are and show up as who they are. And yes, we need to teach them stuff, but we also need to hear from them how they need it for it to happen. They are aware of their, or at least their parents are aware of neurodiversity in a way that we've never seen before. They are aware of the kind of complexity of the human being, and I'm thinking LGBT, like queer kids, LGBTQ plus. I'm thinking in terms of race privilege. I'm thinking in terms of like class structure. Like we are, I think, socially so much more aware of what barriers there are to equality. What we need to do is we need to let them be who they are. We need to guide them with the human skills that they need to have. And what that means is then we need to also like essentially help them to communicate with each other, listen to each other. Oh my gosh, listening would be wonderful. Cultivate empathy, and not necessarily to agree, not so that we're all the same and we agree the same things. It's just that how we can hold space for different opinions and understand that we're valid and we all come from our own unique individual perspectives, and that us as adults need to basically see the value in what these young people individually bring. And of course we need the resources and able to do that. They just need to show up. But we need to grow. We need to develop our growth mindset of how we can then bring that into our classroom and allow them to show up as who they are while developing the skills that they need, the human skills.
My last two questions for you really are, in terms of your personal growth, Cassandra, what ways have you grown personally with all this experience of teaching, the younger generations?
Oh God, massively. I it was really important for me to come out of education. Actually, I am like education is what drives me. It was important for me to step away from it, and I really did have a grieving process when I handed my notice in to leave. Like I was sobbing, not sobbing, but I was like the tears were falling. And I think what I have learned is I've learned coming out of the education system has enabled me to it's a bit like traveling. Like this is what I associate it with. When you leave a country, when you leave your home country and you go and you visit other countries, you see what can be better. You see what is beautiful. You learn about other ways of existing and other ways to live and other ways to
Mm-hmm.
do stuff. And then you come back home and you think, man, we should do that because that's what they do and it's brilliant. That would totally
Yeah.
work here. And so actually going and working in business and then coming back in again, I just see so many opportunities to improve our current system, not least because our young people need it. Like they're the people struggling at the moment. We've got a teacher recruitment crisis and a retention crisis. Our teachers need it. Like the people in the sector need a different way of doing things. So what have I learned? I've learned so much. I have learned not only to be able to kind of envisage some solutions to how we can improve our education sector, but I've also learned so much from the people in it. I've learned, you know what, these young people teach me how to, if they're going to show up as themselves, they're teaching me how to accept them as the shape they are and not try and fit them into a mold that our systems are requiring. I don't need a bunch of cogs. It would make my life easier if they're a bunch of cogs. They are not a bunch of cogs. They are different shapes, different sizes, different people with different experiences. And they have taught me, they are teaching me now because I still don't really know. I just do my best how to allow them all to be who they are in my classroom so that I can try and get them to do what they need to do for this course that we're doing. So they teach me what I need to adapt. My colleagues teach me better ways of speaking to young people. They teach me what commitment is to the betterment of our young people. You know, their commitment to their careers teach me the importance of what we do. The reason why that it all comes from a good place, genuinely, like, I think these systems honestly need to be adapted, but they all come from a place of wanting the best for our young people so they have the best life chances. And that's what they teach me, that what I'm doing is the right thing. This is I've learned an enormous amount, an enormous amount. I know that yeah, I was just going to say, I know that I am doing a better job because I listen to them. I know that I am a better parent because I because of what I do. I'm able to be the shape that I am, actually. That's the thing. I'm able to show up as me, you know, and be myself with them. If I show vulnerability to them, actually that's what builds relationships. I've really learned that. We need to just be honest and truthful and vulnerable with each other. That's what they've taught me. They've taught me how to be vulnerable with them in a way that is professional and safe. That's really what we need, so that we all get a sense of belonging and community and collaboration.
That's super powerful, Cassandra. That is absolutely beautiful. That's the way I envisage the world, right? The perfect world is that's how it should be. So that's really beautiful that they've taught you that. And I hope, like, people hopefully listening into that kind of take that on board as well, and see, how can you look at the world from their eyes, and listen to what Cassandra is saying as well, and hopefully, because we're not all teachers, we're not all going to have the same experience, but I think what you're saying is really powerful. If you have children, or even if you don't have children, just look at what the whole fact, like you said, like, we should just take them as they are. Don't try to conform them. Don't try to put them into a mold. We've been put into molds, the older generations. I think we should realize from our parents and our mistakes a little bit, and with some boundaries, of course, but we shouldn't conform anyone. So that's very beautiful. Thank you for that. And lastly, is there anything that you want to still say to anyone listening in about this topic in general? Why it's important to you? What do people need to think about? Any advice for anyone that might be finding this a bit of a struggle, who are teachers or coaches or whoever, with younger generations?
I feel that there is a really big skill set that's missing, which is entrepreneurship, which teaches people how to identify opportunities and pursue them with the resources they have available. And I would just say that this is my huge piece of learning since I stepped out of teaching, is the value of being entrepreneurial, what it is, because I thought it was just starting businesses. It's not just starting businesses. It's so much more deeper and impactful than that. And it's learning how to be entrepreneurial is what we need to have fulfilling, successful lives. And we don't have careers education is, I know that this is not talking about Gen Alpha specifically, but ultimately, if you look at because everything is fed to us from top down, because our point of education, according to the DFE, is to get people into a place of work. Being entrepreneurial, having entrepreneurial skills, and identifying what's important to us, we need to have a coherent way of teaching that. And I don't actually think that teachers have had the chance, maybe, to even think about what's important for themselves. So what's important to me? Why is it important to me? What is my skill set? And how can I use that in the world in a way that I can get paid for? These are the human skills, I think, that young people need to learn to be able to have successful, fulfilling lives. And yes, they need qualifications, because we live in a place where you need qualifications. But it's not the be all and end all, actually. Being able to, negotiate society in ways that actually are positive for us. This is entrepreneurship. This is a more important skill, in my view. Obviously, knowing how to read and write and understand numbers is incredibly important, but there are other things that give us agency. And I think that entrepreneurship gives us agency in a way that qualifications don't.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That's really awesome advice. And my very last question before I say thank you for today is, Cassandra, what makes you laugh in life? What gives you joy?
Oh God, so many things. Do you know, joy is a thing. Joy is a big piece of me. If anybody's watching this who knows me, they know that I'm joy is a thing that drives me. Things that give me joy are singing very loudly in the car with my kids to Disney songs. This is new. Um, this is honestly new. Um, but just people showing, being themselves in it without being self-conscious, and just letting out the thing that they have inside, whether it is dancing, whether it is singing, whether it is being moved by a piece of art, or something that genuinely helps them to feel seen in a way that or has been able to articulate something that's deep inside of them in a way that they've never seen before. It's these things, being a lack of self-consciousness, that gives me joy.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
because it's authentic, right? That gives me joy.
Agreed. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for joining me today on this podcast. It was lovely speaking to you about this topic. I hope you had a good time, and I
Oh, I
hope you
loved
good.
it.
I hope you thought the questions were appropriate and good as well.
They were great questions. They were like, they made me think, and they were great questions. Well done. Yeah, really
Good.
good.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Anyway, thank you so much, Cassandra. Thank you for joining me today. I wish you have a lovely, lovely day. And is any final words you want to say?
No, just thank you very much for having me on, and I wish all of the success.
Thank you. Thank you so much.